Oregon versus California, which one is better? This is going to be kind of like a pros and cons video. I'm going to weigh some of the different things that people consider when looking at moving to these two states, but I really just want to tell you about why Oregon is better. So if you're thinking about moving to Oregon, stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to Living in Oregon. I am your host, Seth Marchant, licensed real estate broker in the state of Oregon and Washington. Or if you haven't seen this channel before, if you're new to this channel, we show you what it's like to live in Oregon, really focusing on the Portland metropolitan area. We've got over 100 videos, release new videos every single week. So if you want to see more videos about what it's like, not only from myself, but from another gentleman named Paul Clem, also a licensed real estate broker, make sure and subscribe to this channel so you can get new videos every single week. Okay, Oregon versus California. So let's just dive right into it. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's talk about money first. You probably know there is no sales tax in the state of Oregon, but how does Oregon offset not having any sales tax? Where does that revenue that they need come from? First one, big one, is going to be property taxes. Probably going to find, comparing California to Oregon, that your property taxes are going to be slightly higher in Oregon. Reason being, we have a measure and you have a measure. Ours is a little bit newer than yours. I think yours is Prop 13 or 17, something like that, which caps your property taxes by 2% every year. And I believe it also caps taxes at the point of sale at 1%. In the state of Oregon, we have a measure 50 that started back in 1997 that caps property taxes from going up beyond 3% every year. So 2% for California, 3% for Oregon. California's measure, or prop, was announced quite a bit earlier. I think it was like in the late 70s. So that's been going on for a little bit longer, and consequently property taxes are lower in California. Next one, big one, is going to be income taxes. You're going to find some differences in income taxes, and take a look at this graph. It will actually depend. It's not necessarily always going to be higher in California. If you're a lower income earner, actually might be a little bit better to be in California, but once you get kind of around to 50 to about 125,000, you're going to find yourself paying a slightly lower state income tax rate in Oregon. Once you get past 125 up into about 300 to 325, you actually might be a little bit better off in California. Once you get beyond 325 though, California is capped right around 13%, whereas Oregon is 9.9%. So once you get past 325, you're for sure going to be higher in California. There might be one exception though. If you didn't know, the Portland metropolitan area is a tri-county area consisting of Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties. Multnomah County is where Portland proper is, and in Multnomah County, you do have a few additional taxes. First one is a preschool tax. For single filers earning $125,000 or more, joint filers earning $200,000 or more will pay an additional 1.5% tax for a preschool tax that goes towards preschool, which is a great thing, of course. There is also an additional, above and beyond that, 1.5% tax for single filers making $250,000 and joint filers making over $400,000 or more per year. So if you are in Multnomah County, you actually could get right around that 13% mark, right there with California. And by the way, that 1.5% for Multnomah County is going to go up by 0.8%. So what is that, 2.3%? Doing some public math. 2.3% by 2026. So potentially even at that point putting you above and beyond California's highest tax rate. Now their state has inheritance tax. Business taxes are going to be a little bit higher, California compared to Oregon. So in Oregon, it just costs $100 to start an LLC, and then it's like $100 every year just to do an annual report. Whereas California, I believe it's $800. Our corporate taxes here are 6.6%, whereas in California it's closer to like 8.8%. Retirement taxes, I think retirement is going to be very similar for both states, with the exception of military. Oregon doesn't tax military retirement income. Above and beyond that, you might find the occasional tax here and there, We do have a newer tax called a CAT tax, corporate activity tax, which is 0.57% for businesses making taxable revenue over $1 million a year. And businesses can pass that tax along to people. And I've seen it so far, just with car dealerships. That's happened twice now. I've bought 2 cars in the last couple of years, 2 new cars specifically. I don't know if we're seeing this on used cars. I asked a few people that have purchased used cars recently, and they said they didn't notice it. Doesn't mean that it wasn't there. It definitely would have been disclosed, but maybe they just didn't notice it with all the other fees. That tax is getting passed on, from what I can see, at least in new car dealerships paying that corporate activity tax. Oregon is pretty bad when it comes to gas. We have an additional 40 cents on each gallon of gas taxed in the state of Oregon, but not as bad as California. You guys tax an extra 68 cents. If you've never looked at gas prices nationally, the West Coast is just easily the worst. Washington, Oregon, and California always have the highest gas prices. The other exception of that, might be like Hawaii or something like that. If you should look around at gas prices compared to the rest of the country, you can probably pretty easily find at least $1 per gallon difference. So gas is going to be higher in Oregon, but not as high as California. So how does that translate to lifestyle? Well, I ran some numbers, and just comparing to like the Bay Area, for example, if you're making $150,000 in the Bay Area, you can make somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100,000 in the Portland metropolitan area and live roughly the same lifestyle. So what is going to be your biggest lifestyle costs? Of course, housing. That's what we'll talk about first. The rest of the costs are not going to be that much different. Probably not going to be spending that much more money on food, or at least food costs aren't that much higher. You might spend more money on food because we have great food here, but the costs aren't actually that much higher. How about utilities? Because people do commonly ask about utilities. Water is the one I hear about the most. I just got a notification for my gas bill, which covers my water heater, my stove, and fireplace, which doesn't get turned on very often. $29. My electric bill lately has been somewhere in the low hundreds, 120, 130. That has gone up like 20 or 30% though, year over year for the last couple of years, and expect that actually to keep going up. But from what I hear, it's quite a bit less than California. So how about water? My water bill is typically in the peak season right now. We're coming off of the summer. And here in Oregon, if you want your grass to be green, you gotta water your grass about 4 months out of the year, something like that, maybe 5 months, depending on where you're at. If you're in a sunnier place like Central Oregon, Southern Oregon, it's gonna be maybe a little bit more than that. But for people in the Portland metropolitan area, you're looking at about 4 months of water if you want your grass to be green. It doesn't really grow in the wintertime, it becomes dormant. And I'm paying about $160, $170 a month peak season. That's for 4 sprinkler zones running twice a day, 5 minutes a piece. And that'll be closer to $100 in the wintertime. Beyond that, internet's about $100 a month. I use Comcast. Waste management, like 50 or 60 bucks a month. So from what I've heard, because I've helped a lot of Californians relocate to Oregon, I always ask about utility bills. Our utilities are significantly less than California. So how about the traffic? I do have a video on traffic. If you want to watch that video on traffic, the short of the long is it's not bad here. It's not nearly as bad here. I've experienced 405 traffic. I know what it's like. You might hear people complain about the traffic here a little bit, but it's really not that bad. There are some places that are consistently congested, just like you have in LA. But the thing about Portland is it's really not going to take you that long to get anywhere. If you went between the farthest points, let's say like Hillsborough, which is all the way out west, to Troutdale out east, you're looking at maybe an hour at the most. I don't think there's too many people out there that are making more than like a 30-minute commute. So regardless of where you're at in the Portland metropolitan area, wherever your commute is, wherever you need to travel to, most people are not doing that much driving. Most people are not driving more than 30, 45 minutes. A lot of stuff is just going to be 15 or 20 minutes from you. And oh, by the way too, if you haven't heard, you can pump your own gas in Oregon now. I know that's a big deal for a lot of people. Some people don't like other people pumping their gas. And if you've ever come to Oregon and tried to pump your own gas, you probably got scolded by a gas station attendant. They will tell you, hey, you're not supposed to touch that. So I would say don't worry about the traffic. It's going to be a massive improvement for you over California. How about the weather? Very similar to the traffic. It's not as bad as they say. Of course, nobody's moving here for the weather, and if I'm being totally honest, to me, I do think that Southern California weather is the best. I mean, to me, it's just perfect. It's like the Goldilocks of weather. But the one downside, you don't have seasons. And it is nice to have seasons here. We have deciduous trees. The leaves are going to start changing colors. They're going to fall off the trees. It's cool to get a snow day and the city shuts down and everybody takes a day off. You know, occasionally that happens. There's just something about like that cycle, like the changing of seasons, that is really nice. We've got at least probably a couple of videos if you want to check those out on the weather here. We have had a couple of big storms. The two biggest storms in my lifetime, I've lived here my entire life, came in the last couple of years, primarily by way of ice, which wreaked havoc on the city. Power out for multiple days. A lot of people went and bought generators after that. So the weather is kind of changing a little bit here. We are getting longer, nicer weather too. The nice season is extending. We're almost into October and I'm still seeing high 70s and even a day of 80s, whereas in the past, really around when school started, like September, that's when the weather kind of started to get rainy and overcast and cloudy and all that. So the weather is changing, but in a lot of ways for the better, you know, probably despite some of the storms that we've had. If I could make one complaint about the seasons, it's all the decorating. My wife loves to do decorating, and she decorates for all the seasons and for all of the holidays. So there's a lot of decorations going up and then going back down and into storage like 5, 6, 7 times throughout the year. That's a whole entire process. I've noticed a pretty, actually on that note, dramatic change from Thanksgiving to Christmas around here. We're starting to see some Christmas lights up before Thanksgiving. I think, that's a big no-no. I don't know what you want to call that, a cardinal sin, but people say like you're foregoing Thanksgiving by putting up Christmas lights. Now, I do blame the Christmas lights installers, which we have a great installer. So thankful if you're watching, Alan. So thankful for you. But what Christmas lights installers do, which is an industry that's sort of blown up maybe over the past 3 or 4 years, a lot of people have been willing to pay somebody to go up on the roof to put up Christmas lights. And so that's like kind of spawned this whole entire industry. There's a lot more Christmas light installers than there used to be. And so because of that, these people, it's seasonal. They're trying to get as much business as they can. What they'll do is they'll give you an early bird discount. So if you want to be one of the early people and get into the schedule on a day when they can't fill, which is, a lot of that is before Thanksgiving, they'll give you a discount. So I think that's the reason we're starting to see that. Anyways, just know if you're gonna come here and do the seasons things, you might also have to do the decorations thing. All right, how about the housing market? Not gonna be a whole lot different than California. There's gonna be some slight differences. We'll go over those differences when you and I meet. But just right off the bat, kind of quick for you, we don't have the same type of pests. Like, we don't have termite problems. Foundations aren't an issue here like they are there. You guys get all kinds of earthquakes that create foundation issues. If we have foundation issues here, it's because of the hills and the water and the erosion and gravity doing its thing, which can be a thing. So sometimes we'll have foundation issues, but it's not very common here. And then there's just a few slight differences to our contracts and our disclosures. I believe in California, disclosures are always provided up front. In the state of Oregon, don't have to provide your disclosure until you're actually under contract, meaning you have mutual agreements between both parties. Those usually come right away, and sometimes they'll provide disclosures up front, but not always. There's going to be a handful of small differences like that. If you do want to talk more about buying a home in Oregon, if you have questions, again, I'm a licensed real estate broker. I invite you to call. You can hit that QR code if you want to go to our website, get all of our information there. You can text, you can email, you can also find all of our contact information below in the description of this video if you're watching from YouTube. And if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live in Oregon, most of our videos take you through neighborhoods, drone footage, driving footage, really getting you a feel for the area. But we do have some other kind of one-off videos like this that mostly just answer questions that we tend to get. And like I said, we get a lot of Californians. It's we're probably getting more Californians than any other state. There's a lot of Arizona, a lot of Texas, some Nevada, stuff like that. But a lot of people coming from California. So we're sort of used to the differences and the nuances between the process and buying a home in Oregon and California. So I invite you to call, text, email, however you want to get in touch, starting with a Zoom call, which you can find in our calendar. The description of this video is always a great way to meet. And if you want to see, again, more videos like this, make sure and subscribe. And until next time, take care, everyone.